Okay, so welcome everybody. Today we're going to discuss the second lab sheet for virtualization and cloud computing. So we will be talking about Virtualbox. Now, how we'll use Virtualbox is pretty much exactly the same way as you will have used VMware Player by then. They are competitors against each other. So Virtualbox is the main competition to VMware Player. And we'll see what features and options it offers against VMware, and which one of the two is actually the best. A couple of logistics. So we have one more week of classes. So we have a lecture next week, and we have a lab next week as well. And then the week after is consolidation week. So I would like you to be finished completely with both VMware and VirtualBox by the end of the consolidation week. Okay. This means that you'll be able to work on your remaining VMware tasks for this week and maybe get started on VirtualBox, and then work on VirtualBox next week and try to finish it off either next week or the week after, which is the consolidation week. During the consolidation week, the lab will always be open. It's available from 8 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock in the evening. So you can come and go whenever you like. And you can work on the computers as long as nobody else is sitting on the computer, in which case you need to work something out. So VirtualBox will not be installed on your Prometheus virtual machine. You'll be working on the same virtual machine as before. So you need to basically go to the website, go to the link, just click on the link on the lab sheet and get this version of VirtualBox. It's version 6.1.18. There's a version 6.1.49 or whatever it is out there, but it doesn't have to be completely the latest version. It's fine. So you can basically click on this link, get the version that's on this lab sheet, and use it as it is. There aren't really any differences. There were a few bug fixes and so on. So once you have downloaded and installed, it's very easy. Just yum local install the RPM file. Then you can basically start building a virtual machine. It's not too different to VMware Player. It's the same principles of operation. There's a couple of details that I would like you to switch to expert mode to build it and not just go through the automated guide. Choose the type of operating system, hard drive, RAM, and everything else that you need, and so on. Go through the settings, have a look at what they are and how you actually set up the controller, how do you actually set up the image for the ISO, and so on, and basically just install the operating system. Remember the ISO image, you should really have it already on your Prometheus VMs from the previous lab sheet. If you haven't, you can either get it off the CentOS website, but I wouldn't recommend it because it will take about 15-20 minutes usually. The fastest option is to SCP it from your host into your virtual machine. All right. So once you set everything up, you should have internet access. Everything should have been configured automatically by the system via the HCP. Try a ping to the outside world. If it works, document it, and you're good to go. There are settings, just like VMware virtual machine settings are available. There are settings for different types of settings in VirtualBox for the virtual machines that you create there as well. There is a VirtualBox manager, there's a network manager, and there are settings for each of the VMs as well. This paragraph is basically a guide for you to go through VirtualBox. Then by answering the questions in this paragraph, you should learn everything that you need to know about VirtualBox and how to actually use it, at least in its basic functionality with regards to management of the virtual machines and the networking as well, which is the next chapter that we'll be dealing with. So we'll have VirtualBox networking. So by default, it's a NAT configuration, just like VMware does. So write down its IP address, default gateway, and DNS server. So basically all of the information that you need to know exactly how the networking works on your machine, figure out how these addresses get allocated. And then to test the rest of the network options, we will need 4 more of these VMs. The cloning machine on VirtualBox is more automated than it is on VMware Player, at least. There is actually in the VirtualBox manager an option for machine clone. So you can go through that wizard and create 4 virtual machines in total that we need. All right. Remember, you only need to run 1 VM at a time. However, there is plenty of RAM in the system, so you can do whatever you like. At this point, I should mention, make sure that your VMware virtual machines are not running. So if you're finished with the VMware lab sheet and then you continue working onto the VirtualBox lab sheet, then it's a good idea to make sure that all of your VMware virtual machines are shut down so that they don't take any resources in the system, because we don't need them anymore. In fact, if you do find yourself running out of hard drive space, and if you have basically taken thorough screenshots of everything in your logbook and you're happy with it, you can also show me your logbook and I can tell you if you can do that or not. You can actually delete 1 or more of your VMware virtual machines. Okay. Later on, when we get to the assessment in the last week of the semester, then it will be fine as long as you have the documentation for them. Then I will be happy to just accept the documentation in the logbook and not actually need to see the virtual machines running on your computer for VMware at least. Okay. So we'll have 4 different virtual machines. On the VirtualBox Manager, you need to go to Settings, VP4, rename it to VP4 NAT, and then do an ifconfig root-n and pingwheel.com just so that you see that the NATed machine actually works. Then you have VP5, so vPrometheus 5. You can rename it to bridged, so that will be in bridged mode. Again, you need to ask me to give you an IP address for this bridged adapter, depending on what's available in the lab on that particular day. All right. And then we go to VP6, which will be a host-only configuration. So you will need to create a network card. You need to create a VBox Net 0, which is the equivalent of the VMnet network cards that exist on VMware, and so on. Finally, in the last part of the lab sheet, we need to customize networking a little bit. So we can create a subnet 31 address. We'll have our subnet mask of 255.255.252. You need to consult your a2.net subnets file. Again, you need to use the same range of IP addresses as you did for VMware and allocate them to the virtual network cards. You have 2 usable IP addresses. So you need 1 for your VBox net interface on your host, and you need 1 for your virtual machine that you will be working on in the host-only, essentially, scenario that you have. And we'll have VP7, which will be an internal type network. Go to the network, choose internal network, and see what happens with the IP addresses, and see if you can set everything up manually and give it internet access and so on. So the whole purpose of this is for you to be able to explore all the different networking options that VirtualBox provides. Okay, so I do want you to try all of them and see how you actually get on with them. Because in the end of this, the final task is a mini coursework, mini essay, I would say, that needs to be in your logbook. And it is effectively a comparison between VirtualBox and VMware. Okay, so I want you to write 500 to 1,000 words and compare the two. Which one is best? Which one do you prefer? Which one has better features? Which one has more features? Whose features actually work better than the rest? You know, what's easier to configure? Is it VMware networking or VirtualBox networking, and so on? All right, we all have our favorites, and I will tell you now that VMware is my favorite, you know, against VirtualBox. However, I also do use VirtualBox as well. So it's, you know, you need to know how to use everything, because when you do go out in the industry to work, it's better for you to actually know how to use everything, and then maybe specialize in something and excel on that one. All right. So essentially, this is the lab sheet. There are a lot of similarities to the VMware lab sheet. Again, we're creating different virtual machines. So we're installing a virtualization hypervisor. We're building virtual machines. We're looking at all the features that the software has to offer us. And then we're playing around with the networking options so that we see exactly what works best. And then in the end, we make a comparison between the two. So the end of this lab sheet concludes the first part of this module. I will see how you get on in the class this Thursday, day after tomorrow. And if you have any more questions about Virtualbox and so on, then I will have a lecture next Tuesday at 3 o'clock as well. But if I see that you're just getting on with it and you're okay, then perhaps I will not, or I will join anyway, and we can have a sort of drop-in session when you can join at 3 o'clock and ask me questions about anything, right? Anything related to the unit, basically. Yes. Okay. Okay. So I'll stop the recording.